Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to MLS Live Science in Action. This week, we are celebrating all kinds of National Chemistry Week activities, and in just a few moments, we are going to be meeting our special guest educator who will be leading us in an experiment all about sticking with bioplastics. My name is Christina. I will be serving as your moderator today. And although you can see my face right now, you'll mostly be hearing my voice as I share your observations and questions with our guest educator today. If you would like to make observations and share questions and you're watching us through Zoom, you can do so by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And if you need captions, you can select Show Captions on the Closed Caption button at the bottom of your screen as well. Don't forget to include your name and age if you would like a shout out. If you happen to be watching on YouTube or Facebook, unfortunately, we will not be able to see your questions and comments, but we're so happy that you're joining us today, and we hope you enjoy the program. Now, all of that being said, I'd like to invite our educator to turn on their camera, introduce themselves, and get us started.
Hey guys, thanks Christina for introducing me, and welcome everyone for joining on. A big thank you for joining me with Sticking with Bioplastics. I'm going to jump into introducing myself. I'm Janie Butler, but before I do that, I want you guys to write your name, where you're logging in from, and your age in the chat. That would be great so we can get to know each other a little bit, know who's here, where we're tuning in from. So Christina could help me in maybe having some people share out their names, give a little shout out.
Sure thing. We've got a couple of people. So one is Emily, and she's here again. She stopped by this morning to watch the greener glue presentation and now is really excited to be watching this one. We have Vivian, age 9, from Massachusetts. We have Devin from the University of Winnipeg in Canada. And we have Julie from Vermont, including Owen Rogers from Boston Latin Academy. So really, we've got some folks represented from all kinds of places right now.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for introducing you guys. I'm really excited to have you all here, and it's super cool that everyone's coming in from all over the world. I am from Boulder, Colorado right now, so I'm from the other side of the country, but I'm excited to have you guys here. So I want to share a little bit of my story and how I got here before diving in. So my name is Janie Butler, and I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't a huge fan of chemistry in high school. It seemed really tricky and hard to understand, and like it was only for a certain elite amount of people, and that wasn't necessarily me. But when I went to college, I got really passionate about the environment and using chemistry to understand it. When I was graduating, I learned that there was a field of chemistry called green chemistry, and now I work with Beyond Benign, who is a nonprofit, and how to further green chemistry education from all the way of kindergarten to middle school, high school, elementary, higher ed, colleges and universities. That's what Beyond Benign does. We try to disseminate and develop green chemistry resources. Beyond Benign is located up in Wilmington, Massachusetts, so close to some of you guys. And we're a small nonprofit organization. So by now I've mentioned the word green chemistry a bunch of times without defining it. Has anyone heard of green chemistry before, or is willing to wage a guess of what it could mean? If you guys could put that in the chat, that would be great.
Awesome, and we'll give our viewers a few moments to type in their thoughts in the Q&A section, Janie. But we did have some good ideas from this morning and some repeat viewers, so maybe they might already know the answer to this.
I know, I always like to ask on the off chance that someone's like an aficionado and knows green chemistry. I will tell you guys that I'm not expecting you to have it down pat. So if you want to wage a guess of what it means to be green, maybe more so than just the color, what does it mean to do something in a green way, and how could that be chemistry?
And we do have a response here from Alyssa, who says, yes, I've taken my AP chemistry students there several times. We love the blackberry cells. I'm not sure what that's a reference to, but I'm certain that you do. We have some other folks saying, a healthy chemistry for you and the nature without using much chemicals as a definition for green chemistry. Someone else says, I also use some of the Beyond Benign labs in my classroom. So that's awesome that this is being utilized by some teachers and schools, it sounds like. And Sylvie says when she thinks of green chemistry, she thinks of nature. Vivian, age 9, says green equals clean and nature, and plants and healthy.
Yes, I love the green equals clean. That's great. And I'll give a little teaser here. The blackberry lab is when we use blackberries, an electrolyte solution, in order to make our own solar panels. So that's another really cool one. If you ever want to explore that, you can go to the Beyond Benign website. You guys are spot on with saying that green equals clean, a more sustainable way of thinking about the environment and the planet a bit more. So the definition of green chemistry is the design and development of chemical products and processes to be done in a more sustainable way. That's a bit of a mouthful. The way that I like to define it is benign by design. Now, if we're not familiar with the word benign, it means non-harming. So doing things in a way that are kind or good for the environment and humans in the way that they're designed. Now, green chemistry is made up of 3 big principles. There's 12 principles of green chemistry, but they boil down into these 3 big components. They are cost, safety, and performance. In order for something to be considered a green chemistry technology, it has to be able to perform at the same level or better than a competitive in the normal marketplace. It also has to be safer for both humans and the environment. That one kind of makes sense with what we were just talking about, right? And it has to be able to be done at an equivalent price point or cheaper. So if we're able to do something that's able to perform better, is better for human health and the environment, but is really, really expensive, are we going to be able to do that? Is that a viable option? Not necessarily. So what I'm getting at here is a lot of green chemistry is redesigning or inventing new ways to do things. We have to think about chemistry in a new way to think about doing it sustainably. So we're going to be talking about plastics today. What I want you guys to do with me first is look around and see if you can see anything that's made out of plastic. And if you could just put those into the chat box, the first thing you see, what could be made out of plastic? What is a plastic that's around you? What are the different things that are made out of plastics? If you could put those into the chat box, that would be great.
Awesome. We already have some ideas coming in, it looks like, Janie. So Vivian, age 9, says computer things, maybe a mouse. I'm guessing she's thinking about the computer that you're streaming from right now. Alyssa says a hair clip. We have also cables, packaging material, mechanical pencil, Ziploc bags, so lots of things.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys make a really, really good point by showing the variety of things that can be made from plastics. So many things are made from plastics. Now, I'm going to wager guess that a lot of these are made from traditional plastics or petroleum-based plastics. Now, hearing that word petroleum-based plastics, what does that make us think in terms of its starting material on if it's good for the earth, not so good? Where does petroleum come from? Let's start there. Where do we think petroleum could come from?
So we've got a few thoughts coming in, Janie. One person says when they think of petroleum, they think of jelly, that maybe it's not something that's good for the earth or it's bad for the earth. Also, some people have some question marks. Maybe they really don't know.
Okay, cool. Well, then let's learn something together. So petroleum is petroleum-based oils that are found deep into the ground. We have to be able to mine them up out of the ground, and that takes a lot of resources. We then have to be able to transfer those far distances and process them, which uses a lot of heavy, harsh chemicals. So the way that we normally understand that plastics aren't great for the earth is we think about what happens to them at the end of the life cycle, but petroleum-based plastics are also pretty harsh on the earth and human health in the way that they're created. Now, what do we think happens to these plastics at the end of their life cycle? After we're done using them, we no longer need the Ziploc bag. What happens then?
We'll wait for them yet to type it in the Q&A. I know it's not easy to type so fast, but it looks like people are saying that these plastics could hurt turtles, maybe hurt jellyfish. So thinking about the impact on other animals. Another person is saying that it just turns into trash. Maybe it ends up in landfills or it'll get buried under the ground, according to Lexi, age 11.
Yeah. you guys make a really good point about the aquatic life and the health of the earth. So if there's a way that we could use plastics, plastics are used for so many different things, but maybe so that it wouldn't be so harmful once we're done with using them. So maybe we could redesign plastics or reinvent the way that we use plastics and use bioplastics instead. Does that sound good? I think it's worth trying out, and I think it's something that green chemistry could be used for. So that's what we're going to be doing today, is we are going to be making our own bioplastics. So we're going to have the same properties as a plastic. So what it means to be a plastic is that it's moldable, that you can form it into various things. That's why plastics are used for so many things. But we're going to be using it from bio-based starting materials. Does anyone know what it means to be bio-based, or what bios means? Maybe if anyone's taking a biology course, they can use that as a clue.
Yeah, I was going to say the first thing that came to my mind was just biology, but I'm guessing that might not be what you're looking for. Vivian, age 9, says she first thinks of green and nature, and we might have some more ideas coming, but they're not in yet.
Okay, well, I like that starting point. I think it's a really good one. So yeah, bios means life. So it's things that are living that we can use from nature, exactly, in a more sustainable way. So what we're going to be making today is we're going to be making our own window clings. If you peek over here a little bit, you can see the ones that I've been testing with. So are you guys ready to dive into it and start making our own bioplastics together? Sound good? Sweet. So I'm going to go through our materials quickly, and then we're going to dive in. So what we need cornstarch, white vinegar. This is our glycerol. It comes in an interesting form. I'll talk in a little bit. Food coloring, so we can make it fun colors. Some water. I just use tap water, put it into a cup. And then we need a few tools. We need some scissors. We need a knife, a tablespoon, and then just a mixing spoon. We also need to have a cup that we can do all of this inside of. Now, these materials over here are ones that we're going to be using in the second phase of doing this. I'll introduce them to you now, but then I'm going to put them aside so you can see more clearly what I'm working on right now. So we're going to need Ziploc baggies, cookie cutters. These are optional if you want to do cookie cutters or not. You can also do whatever shape you like. But if you're a little artistically challenged, like me, very helpful. And either some tin foil or plastic wrap. So I'm going to move these aside while we first work on formulating our bioplastic. So the first thing that we're going to do is start with our cornstarch. Now this will be our bios starting material. What do we think cornstarch comes from? You guys want to put a guess into the chat?
Oh, it looks like we have a unanimous decision of corn.
Well done, nailed it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out 2 tablespoons. Now, in the hopes of being a bit more precise, I'm going to use the back of the knife to help me measure this so that it doesn't become an overflowing amount. And I'm telling you now that I'm going to make a mess. I have practiced doing this many times. Every single time I make a mess with this, so enjoy. So I'm going to just move that into this little cup over here. Try to get as much of it out as possible. And I told you guys 2 tablespoons of this. So again, I'm going to use my knife to have that nice flat top. Can you kind of see that? And I'm going to be careful putting this into my mixing cup. I'm going to empty that out into there. So now that is all the bios material we're going to start with. Now, cornstarch is its own molecule or its own chemical composition. So what we want to do next is break it up a little bit. You know, if you're starting with Legos already put together, we want to break apart these Legos. And we're going to use an acid to do that. Now, has anyone heard of acids or bases before?
We're letting people write it down as well, but I think that some folks have heard of it in terms of doing science experiments. We have a couple of people saying yes, Some other people are saying when they think of acids, they think of things like poison and alcohol. So very strong associations.
Yeah. Has anyone heard of the pH scale before and is willing to wager a guess of what it means to be on the pH scale? What is the pH scale used for?
We have maybe a little bit of dissent in the chat. They're saying, nope, we do not know.
Cool. I like it. So pH is used to measure the acidity or how basic something is. Now, these two things are on opposite sides of the spectrum. It goes from 1 to 14. So you are right that acids can be very dangerous. Bases can also be very dangerous. It matters on how strong they are on either side. So the pH scale gives us a good metric for measuring how strong something is in terms of being super acidic or super basic. Now, we're going to use white vinegar. White vinegar is something that's common in most households. It is acidic. We do have to be careful using it, but it's not as harsh as some other acids that are used out in making petroleum-based plastics. So we're going to be using this acid in order to break up these cornstarch molecules and make them more malleable or moldable, so we can make them into our own form of plastic. So I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of this into our mixture. Guys, I did a pretty good job. Didn't make that big of a mess. I'm proud of myself. I don't know if you are. And then we're gonna give it a little bit of a stir. Now I'm gonna walk up to the camera and show you guys what it's looking like in here, because it turns into a pretty interesting mixture. So if you can see that, you can see how it kind of runs together, but also forms its own solid. So you see how it like turns into kind of a slime? So it'll run and be melty like that. But then also, you see that? So we're gonna mix it until it gets to that consistency. I think it's always interesting doing things in chemistry because you can see the changes that are happening. So the structure of this, or the form that it's in, is very different than the liquid that the white vinegar was, or the solid that the cornstarch was. Now we have a mixture component of these two. The next thing we're going to add is 2 tablespoons of water. We're doing this in order to thin out the mixture so that we can able to mold it a bit better. So I'll add 1. This is just a cup of water. 1, 2. And I'll come around and mix in front of you guys again so you can see what it changes into. So it starts as super soupy. Can you kind of see that? And then it's going to take a little bit of work in order to mix that other mixture into it. We're going to want to get it into a pretty consistent structure. So we're going to have to stir it a little bit to get there. And now, guys, the big question's coming your way. We're going to dye this a certain color. What color should we dye it? So you see now we become more liquidy. That's what we're working towards. It kind of looks like milk at this point.
Ooh, that's a hard choice. We have a few different thoughts about what color it is, but right now, let's see, I'm seeing a lot of blues, some greens, 1 pink, more
Ooh.
blues, but I would say blue is definitely overwhelmingly beating green and pink right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard that blue is most people's favorite color. So we're going to add in 3 drops of whatever color you want. We'll do blue for now. Guys, I hate to say it, but yellow is my favorite color, and I can't believe none of you picked yellow, but whatever. So now we have this soupy blue mixture. The next thing we're going to add is our plasticizer. Now, what do you think our plasticizer does to this milky mixture? What does it help us get it more similar to? We're gonna add 1 tablespoon of this while you guys think about that.
All right, it looks like some people are saying it might make the solution look like it's freezing up a little bit and that it'll act a lot more like plastic or be hard or maybe more solid.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on. So if we're thinking about that Lego example before of how we started with somebody else's Legos that they were working on and they had structures built and we broke them apart. So now we have all the little tiny pieces. What we're doing now is we're rebinding them, but into the structure we want it to be. So we're making these long threads so we can make our own types of plastics out of this. So once we have this mixed up, so you guys are ready. Well-defined of plasticizer. Once we have this mixed up, we're going to add it onto heat. Now, heat is going to be our catalyst. Has anyone heard of the word catalyst before?
It looks like we have maybe a mix of yes, a mix of no, and somebody thinking that maybe it has something to do with cats.
Cats? That's awesome. I wish. A catalyst is used traditionally to help speed up a reaction or make it happen at a different rate. So heat is a very common catalyst that is used. So to do this, we add our mixture into a little pot. I'm gonna just pour it straight in. So it starts as pretty soupy. We add it onto heat, and we're going to have that, we're going to cook that up until it's more of like a maple syrupy texture, or not quite at the stage of being like toothpastey, but right before that. That kind of makes sense? So this will take a little bit of time, and because of that, I'm going to skip this step. It'll take, I'll say you should put your heat around medium high. If you're not normally allowed to use this stove, I would recommend doing this with an adult nearby. So you're going to cook it up just a little bit. The goal will be when you drag a spoon or whatever you're stirring with through it, that you'll be able to see the bottom and it will remain there for a second or two. It will take about 5 minutes to do so. So when you do that, after you have that completed, you have created your bioplastic mixture. Now I want to note, before moving this off heat, you got to let it cool. You have to have a minute before we move it into a baggie, but we're going to pipe that into a Ziploc baggie, and now we're on to stage 2 of making the bioplastics. Because of that, I'm going to straighten out a little bit so you guys can really see what I'm working on. Is there any questions about what we did for the first part of our formulation?
We did have one clarification question, because this person may have tuned in a little bit later, and that was if you could remind us what you are using for this plastic mixture.
Ooh, yeah, so we are using cornstarch, white vinegar, food coloring, water, and you're right, I didn't quite explain this well. This is glycerol. That sounds like a big fancy chemical name, it is, but what I got it in the form is a laxative. So I found this at the local drugstore, and you can see right there the ingredients that are in it. So this is a lot more commonplace than it sounds, but this is our plasticizer that we use. So hopefully that answers the question. What we're doing next is we're grabbing our tinfoil back, our Ziploc baggies, our molds, our cookie cutters. And what we do at this point is that we can make our window cling into whatever form we want it to be. I have a sneaky formulation I made before. I made it orange because I like orange. And all we do is that we're just gonna cut the bottom of the bag so that we're able to pipe it. And then if you want to make it into whatever form or shape you want, you can make it into like a big heart. You can make it spell green chemistry. You can do whatever you like. And then it just needs to have, depending on the humidity of where you're at, it needs at least 3 hours to dry. That's the hard part, right? Waiting for that. But if you want to use a cookie cutter, this one's a witch's hat. You can fill it in, all in between. And that way you can have it mold and set into the shape that you want it to be. If you look over here, you can see some of the window clings that I made before. So with that, it's just so fun. I want to keep doing them. With that, that's how you make bioplastic window clings. So thank you so much for following along with me, everyone. Thank you to Museum of Science for having me. I would love to see if you guys have any questions for me on this or anything else you want to ask about. So thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Janie. That was a lot of fun to see this experiment in action. And we've got a couple of thoughts from our audience today, a lot of thank yous, and then a couple of extra thoughts. So one person, Sandy, was hoping you could describe what the window clings are on your window, because they're a little bit hard to see on camera.
Well, I wouldn't blame your camera. I would blame my artistic ability. So I had, I'll show you. This is pretty much what they end up looking like at the end. It's a good reminder. These are some little hearts I made. Aren't they kind of cute? These ones are me making different letters. So I used cookie cutters that had letters on them. So they start looking out like this, and I filled them in with little ones. I can probably turn my camera a little bit more so you can see. This is where I was like, maybe I'll free handwriting happy. It did not go well. So does that kind of answer that question?
I think that is very helpful. Yes, Janie. And then we have another question from a teacher who is, I'm assuming a teacher, or they're saying that this is a great lab for remote learning with their home kits. And they're wondering if this write-up is available anywhere where they can find it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Beyond Benign, everything we do is open access, NGSS aligned, and online on our website. The website is beyondbenign.org. And on our homepage right now, you can gain access to the guide that talks about inventing green with bioplastics. It's a hefty guide. There's 7 parts to it, but it goes through stepwise of how you could do this with a class of students. Also, if you have any individual questions, you can always reach out to me. You will find me on the Beyond Benign website as well. And again, my name is Janie Butler.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Janie. And I think we're going to leave it at that. So let me turn my video back on. And we want to thank you, Janie, for being such an amazing guest educator for us here today. You can go ahead and say goodbye to the audience and get your camera off.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And happy National Chemistry Week. Bye, guys.
And I want to thank all of you for joining us for this presentation today and for being so great at sharing your observations and your questions. What I will mention is that if you do end up choosing to do this experiment, we'd love to see the results. So please consider making a post on social media and including our hashtag, which is hashtag MOS at home. We'd love to see the results of your window clings. Also, if you'd like to see more Chemistry Week programming this week, you can find out more about our schedule at www.mos.org/chemistryweek. If you'd like to find out what other kinds of opportunities we have for our programming outside of Chemistry Week, you can find those at our website at mos.org/mos at home. And if you would like to support the Museum of Science to continue programming like this in the future, you can find out more about that by visiting our website at engage.mos.org/welcome. But thank you all so much for joining the program today. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you at the next one.